Okay, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to those of you who are joining us from across the world today. We are delighted and honored to have with us several young representatives from Earth Guardian Sri Lanka and the Managing Director of GFI India, Varun Deshpande, with us today to discuss the climate emergency and its impact on us all. Welcome Satya, Aisha, Mahasen, Akash, Jumana, and Varun to Pandemic Panditry. How are you guys doing this morning?
Good.
I'm good.
We're good.
Everybody doing
Thank
well?
you.
Okay, great. We're excited to have all of you.
Super happy to be here, by the way.
Great.
That's how I'm doing. Thank you.
I'm glad you accepted the invitation, Varun, as well. So I'm, when we talk to children or young children about climate change, Karthik and I find it both inspiring and sad at the same time. Sad because children should be thinking about melting ice cream cones and not melting glaciers. Nor should they have to sort of worry about rising sea levels and degraded soils and loss of water and the myriad other things that adults have done to this planet in the name of progress and growth. So with that, as a starting point, Warren, maybe we can start with you, and maybe you can provide some context and some perspective in terms of some facts and figures about this crisis we are facing.
Yeah, thank you so much, Lavindra. And I'm not going to take up too much time because I do want to hear from everyone else that's on this call. But the main thing to note here is, look, I turned 30 years old this year. Okay, when my grandparents were born, when our grandparents were born, Lavi, Kartika, there were 1 billion people on this planet. All right, now we are at 8 billion. Okay, by 2050, we're going to be at 10 billion people on this planet. And the story of the last decades has been one of extraction, one of tremendously negative impacts on the planet in terms of biodiversity loss, greenhouse gas emissions, ocean dead zones, ocean acidification, any of the major problems that all of us here today should care about and do care about. If you think and looked at any of the authorities on this, the United Nations, the Eat Lancet report, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, they're all signaling a climate emergency. I'll zoom in a little bit on the food system because that's what we focus on at the Good Food Institute. A particularly major issue in our space is the consumption of animal-sourced foods, meat, eggs, and dairy. And the simple truth, the reason for that is because we eat animals who eat plants, right? So we have to grow all of these crops to feed all of these animals and then eat a portion of those animals as meat. And it turns out that has a huge impact on the planet, right? If you look at any of the issues that I mentioned earlier that we all care about, it's having a major problem, a major impact on the planet. So when we get fish from the ocean, for example, we are unable to replenish those stocks in the ocean. We're taking more from the ocean than we're able to replenish. This is something like 93% of all sources of fish in the ocean are overfished or are actively declining. That's what leads to ocean dead zones. It leads to the loss of biodiversity, which doesn't allow us to maintain our temperature and our ecology the way that we've been relying on for decades. We've had this arrangement with nature over the last centuries, over the last millennia, that we've essentially treated it like a bank. And we've been extracting it from it over time. And we're very quickly, in fact, I would argue we're already at the point where we can no longer keep extracting from the bank of nature. Right, so we could talk about all of the projections that the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change has made, that we're bumping up against those 2 degrees Celsius rises in temperatures, which would be irreversible in terms of ecological damage or any of those things. I want to seed ground here and hear more from everyone else on this call. But I will say one thing, that this particular fight, this mission to save the planet is not one that this generation chose. It's one that it inherited. But it absolutely is one that we have to take up by the scruff of its neck and really take forward. And I'm extremely glad to be here with everyone here and see that people care about this challenge and are working towards it.
Well said, Varun. I mean, it's always great to hear you sort of distill facts and figures into a very sort of understandable format. And that's a unique skill that you have, and we're very, very happy that you're on this conversation today. Maybe we can ask the young panelists here, Satya, Aisha, Mahasen, Akash, and Jumana. Can you tell us a bit about the Earth Guardians movement itself and what it represents?
So Earth Guardians is a global organization founded by Sutes Kata Martinez. And it's a movement about the climate emergency and what we have to do to protect ourselves from it, and to raise awareness. There's many projects going on to try and fight this.
Okay, and all of you are members of the Sri Lankan chapter of this global organization. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I founded Earth Guardians Sri Lanka, and the reason I did this at the time, it was because of the amount of plastic I was seeing in the supermarkets, and I got really upset one day, and my mum said, instead of getting upset about it, why don't I do something about it? So we found Earth Guardians, and we decided to create a Sri Lankan crew. But ever since I got into it, I realized that there's so much more problems that exist other than just plastic. So now it's about deforestation and animal cruelty and stuff like that.
Great. Karthika?
Yeah. So Akash, Mahasan, Jumana, Aisha, so why did you guys join Earth Guardians?
Well, when we also went out, we noticed that this was not what was supposed to be happening. There was plastic everywhere. It was just not nice. And then Satya decided to start this up, and we wanted to support her. And then after we joined, we realized how much it's helping and what a difference we can make. It's really nice.
Yeah. Anyone else?
When we were having plastic-free, no-waste picnic in the park, and I was just like, here's something here at home I can do to help the planet, and I kind of just decided to get into it.
Yeah, you notice there's so much plastic everywhere, and I wanted to do something, and then tada, Satya's founded Earth Guardian Sri Lanka, and it's aha, and then I decided to join it.
Aisha, what about you?
Well, initially my mom told me about it. It was more of a way for me to do a club, because I wasn't doing many after school activities. But I've always cared about the environment.
Great.
All right.
So I think so that this enthusiasm by all of you seeing a particular problem, which was the plastic amount of plastic, the sheer amount of plastic that's around in Sri Lanka, where all of you live, prompted you to join or create this movement, a chapter in Sri Lanka. Varun, what is your sort of personal story? I understand that you obviously currently advocate for saner food choices, among other things. So what inspired you to become an activist or advocate?
Thank you, Lavi. And it is great to hear everyone talk about their journeys as well. So I grew up in Mumbai, India. And I think, we all know if you've lived in places like India that sometimes challenges can feel overwhelming, right? Because there's extreme poverty, there's malnutrition, and the effects of issues like climate crises are felt the most among vulnerable populations, right? So places where there are a lot of extremely poor folks or people who are malnutritioned or farmers who are reliant on the land for their livelihood and their sustenance are, of course, the worst affected by things like climate crises. I stayed in the healthcare space. That's kind of where I was for a long time. And I never imagined that I would get involved in things like climate change. I was very sort of laser focused on global health, global poverty, those kinds of issues, until I realized when you study a lot of these problems, one problem seems to come up over and over as a central node, a central problem that creates a number of other things. So when I realized that this industrial animal agriculture equation of raising all of these animals, 70 billion land animals, and something like 1 to 3 trillion fish that we eat every year, it creates all of these other issues: food insecurity, climate crises, all of the problems I mentioned earlier, deforestation, et cetera, et cetera. I figured maybe that's an area that I can make a difference. And I think that is that was a very important revelation for me, that I could genuinely impact planetary health. This was not something that I had imagined growing up or being in the healthcare space. It seemed like a problem that was for other people to affect or to impact, but of course one that affects everyone on the planet. So I think for me personally, it was a great insight to be able to say, look, I can do all the things that where I've developed skills over the last 10, 15, 20 years of my life, because I genuinely was thinking about those things for my entire life, as well as impact planetary health, animal welfare, and all of these other things. I just want to also really quickly say that, we need all tools. There is no silver bullet. So whether we're talking about, you were all talking about plastics, I think whether or not we work on plastics or we work on the energy transition, that it's transitioning away from carbon and other sources of energy over to renewables and other things, or we work on electrifying the transportation grid, right, moving over to electric vehicles, or we work on factory farming, which is the area that I specifically work on. We need all of these things to be worked on in order to have a better planetary future, right? So all the talent that we can get, all the young people that we can get, whether it's in terms of making changes in your own lives, or I think crucially, looking at dedicating your career towards these problems. I think that's the kind of thing that we need. And I think I'm personally, I look at myself as proof of that you can come in from any walk of life without being an expert on planetary health and impact this space.
Yeah.
Wonderful, Varun. Can you also just give a quick overview of what GFI does, so that I know that we take it for granted, but maybe for the people listening in on today's program, you also go global organization as well. So just quickly, the mission of GFI, and then we'll go back to questions.
Yeah, thank you, Lavi. So I'm Managing Director of the Good Food Institute India. We are part of a global network of nonprofits, which focuses on accelerating the alternative protein sector. So all the things I said earlier, that industrial animal agriculture is a central node of all of these problems, it doesn't sound like a solution, does it? It sounds like pointing out the problems. And unfortunately, what's happened over the last decades is telling people to eat chickpeas instead of chicken, eat chana, not chicken, doesn't seem to have worked in a great way. What is looking like it's working, though, is pioneering new and interesting alternatives to meat, eggs, and dairy that seem like a simple switch and not a sacrifice. They don't seem like you're sacrificing and eating broccoli instead of beef or eating chickpeas instead of chicken, right? So we work to accelerate that sector. We work with entrepreneurs, universities, governments, scientists, really anyone that can help to pioneer these alternatives that taste the same or better and cost the same or less, but just happen to be made in a way that's thousands of times better for the environment across a number of different parameters.
Great. Thank you. Kartika?
Thanks. Yeah. So moving on to the Earth Guardians again. So Satya, Aisha Mahasan, Akash, and Jumana, do you guys consider yourselves as activists, or is this just a part of life?
Well, for me, I think it's activism and a part of life. Like every day after I've done school, after I've done my homework, I do something for Earth Guardians. Whether it's trying to convey, to raise awareness, or trying to get people to join in our photo campaign for the Circular O5 2001. It's just, for me, it's part of my everyday life, and I try my best to convey the message that this is an emergency. We need to act on it right now.
Mahasan?
I feel like I'm like here, I'm like in between, because like we as Earth Guardians, we like go for, like, we do our protests and stuff and like convince people, like I guess sort of like an activist, we do stuff and like try and convince people and tell people how important it is and that there really are things we need to work on. But at the same time, I do like the things I feel like everyone should do, like whether it be like maybe recycling, for example, like everyone should do something. Like I feel it's just what all humans should do.
Well said.
Yeah, well said. Akash?
I think I agree with Martin on what he said, because when we do projects and we go out onto the streets, we raise awareness, and we have petitions and things. At the same time, there's some things that I just feel people should be trying to do, like using metal straws, not using single-use plastic, which is just something really basic.
All right. Jumana?
Yeah, even I think it's both because we do the basic stuff like not littering, recycling what we use, and it's also activism because we're going out and we're getting ourselves heard, we're raising awareness.
Yeah, and also I think last year, from I think it was October or no, from October till March, we've been raising money for a tree planting project, and we raised almost 1 million rupees, which will plant approximately 2,000 trees, and we are going to get on planting as soon as possible.
Wow, very, very creditable.
Thank you.
Aisha, anything you want to add?
I mean, not much. Pretty much the same thing. This I don't really consider myself an activist. I just think that I do like the basic thing, like the basic human decency. Do like the small things that like don't really take that much effort. It's like pick paper instead of plastic at the supermarket or using bags. Yeah.
All right.
So what was the initial reaction from your parents and your elders and even your friends when you said, "Hey, we're going to start this movement called Earth Guardians. We're going to go out there onto the streets and hold up signs and whatever you do to protest and raise awareness." What was their reaction? Were they supportive, or were they like, "Are you crazy?" What was the reaction of people who were maybe not on the same wavelength as you are?
Well, at the time when I was talking about starting Earth Guardians, there were people like you guys who supported and joined in the fight. And there were people who were quite doubting and said, how are you gonna change this? How are you gonna, just you and a couple of your friends, just make a big difference? And actually we have made a big difference. And there were, again, older people who were very defiant to changing their ways on this instance. And we managed to convince them to see the problem, and now they have actually, the people who said it wasn't going to work have actually started to join in and help out, which I think is amazing that we managed to convince them.
Wow, that's very impressive. So all of you do have some support from your families, I assume. That's why you're sort of involved.
Yeah.
So long as you get your homework done, I assume you're allowed to do
Yeah.
Earth Guardians, right?
Like I
But
said,
I mean, I always find it sort of incredible Karthika and I've been speaking. We've been speaking to a bunch of very young people as part of this Earth Member November, and thank you, Mahasen, for coming up with the name. And it's amazing how these young people are, taken on very sort of adult responsibilities, right? I mean, saving the planet is usually left for other people to do, and it's heartening. It's inspiring to hear all of you, taking on this as a part of your everyday, day-to-day life. It seems so. That's incredibly creditable. What are the things that you think are, in Sri Lanka, particularly for the Earth Guardians of the Sri Lanka chapter, is one of your biggest and most pressing concerns right now? If you were to use our platform to raise awareness, what would that thing be?
So currently we have a project about the Circular 05/2001. The government is trying to overturn the law and give away 700,000 hectares of forest, which is approximately 980,000 football pitches. We have a petition online, an online petition, and we're trying to raise 80,000 signatures, which will hopefully make a difference. And we also have a photograph campaign to get as many people to hold up a sign that says #SaveOurForestSL. And we're just trying to get as many of those as we can. So I think that's one thing that we'd like to raise awareness of. You guys.
I think another concern is like how it's impacting the animals here. I mean, there are so many animals getting hurt by climate change, such as there are turtles and all on the beach. On the way to the ocean, they consume loads of plastic. which makes them think they're full when they're actually not. And it results in them not eating, so they eventually die of starvation.
Wow.
Yeah, and I think all these circumstances are all linked in many various ways.
Yeah.
Our carbon footprint and then our deforestation, the trees aren't able to balance the carbon dioxide in the environment. So we just need to balance it all and get it right again.
No.
So I just want to ask a question, an observation, right? So all of you seem very, very sort of well researched and knowledgeable about what is happening. Is this something that you learned in school, or is this something you did on your own in terms of research online? And do you think if that school curriculums should include some amount of education or knowledge sharing around issues of climate change?
Yes, I definitely think schools.
Yeah.
So I did my own research, and yeah, we've all done
Yeah.
Like
our
our
own research.
because the schools aren't including this in the curriculum. We have tried to tell our school to do it various amount of times, but nothing's really changing, and we would really like it for more people, more students, more adults to become aware of this emergency. It would be great, but we're going to keep trying to get that done.
Before we go to questions, Varun, is there any efforts on the part of maybe GFI or others in India to do something similar as well? To you would think that given the emergency situation that we are faced in, that this would be something that will be added to curriculums. Have you seen such activity anywhere else in the world, or even in India?
Yeah, so I mean, at least in our space, which is pioneering meat alternatives, there are a lot of university level and I think eventually high school level courses that are coming up and will come up. So we have we helped to set in place a course at UC Berkeley for this. We're currently teaching courses at 2 universities in Israel and a third one in Israel in March, and then hopefully in India as well. That specifically talks about our space, right? So like, what are all the scientific skills that you need to think about, all the business skills that you need to think about to be able to enter our arena? And just to underline the opportunity here, what we're talking about is meat alternatives that are made entirely from plants, not from animals, or from animal cells rather than growing those animals and slaughtering them, or from algae or other things, right? And the impact is huge. So if we talk about plant-based meats, if you take one Beyond Burger, which is made by an American company called Beyond Meat, and you substitute it for the one of the 3 beef burgers that Americans eat every week, it's the equivalent of taking 12.2 million cars off the road or powering 2.3 million additional homes. So to your point, Lavi, like educating people on this and how to make these alternatives is a huge opportunity. But I think, if I may, that in places like India, we don't see emergencies until it's too late. I don't like the analogy of like the frog boiling in water, but this is a very, very relevant one. And by the way, I think this is scientifically false, but there's this idea that frogs don't realize they are being boiled until it's already too late. That's kind of where we are in a place like India, right? Oftentimes, many of the conversations that I have are, but we're not actually eating that much meat in India currently compared to like the West. Isn't this a Western problem? Or analogously, other people must be having conversations like, we are not actually burning as much coal as China is, right? But we will be in 10 years, we will be in 20 years, we will be in 30 years. If you look at all the projections of where India is going to go, or South Asia as a block is going to go, it's going to be one of the most important zones for increases in all of these bad things over the next 10, 20 years. So to your point, Lavi, we absolutely should be looking to embed these things. So I commend everyone here. I mean, all of you are really remarkable people that are kind of driving this activism. And to the extent that you can take it to your school boards or to like have your parents take it to your school boards and say, look, like, it doesn't have to be something that's thrust down the throats of the students. It can be very easy, light, something that's just general awareness about what's going on. These are not things that are disputed at this point. I mean, the climate emergency is something that's out there. Very few people dispute that. So I think there's an opportunity here to educate a generation to be exactly like everyone on this call is. And it gives me hope that we're going to be all right if everyone turns out this way.
Yeah. Can I just add to your the frog boiling metaphor? I think that is the whole world. I don't think anyone realizes the emergency of the climate, even though it's called the climate emergency. I don't think everyone realizes how urgent this matter is, and we really need to. People need to get on this now. Like, we don't have much time.
Yeah, I think
we'll just take a question, Lavi, if you don't mind.
Please, go ahead.
Yeah. Chris, thanks for joining us today, Chris. So his question is, who do you think needs to take responsibility for making the world environmentally safe again? Governments, big corporations, or the individuals? And he's got a personal message. Well done, everyone, for taking on this. So,
great question.
Akash, you want to start?
What I believe is basically everyone, most people, if not everyone on this earth, has contributed to climate change in some small way, even if it's like using a plastic straw or throwing away a plastic bag. So the point is everyone takes, so everyone should give back, even if it's in a really small way.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. Anyone else? Varun, anything to add?
Yeah, so I mean, like I said, I think this is extremely heartening to see this kind of activism. And I think that everyone in their individual capacity can make a difference, right? And that's what's a significant portion of what is going to change on this planet. But I will say that, all the data indicates that corporations and governments are like such an overwhelmingly big piece of this equation that they really need to take more responsibility for this. And what's great is individuals can dictate what governments and corporations do, right? We do have power as individuals through our political engagement as well as through our consumption to show corporations the writing on the wall of where the planet needs to go, and also to show governments what they need to do to stimulate that change. So for example, in our space, the people that are driving this change is a global group of people called flexitarians, right? Flexitarians meaning, maybe I ate meat before, I still continue to eat meat, but I understand its impact on the planet. I understand that, the industrial animal agriculture ecosystem has more climate change than all emissions from the entire transportation sector combined. So I am going to swap out that one beef burger a week for a Beyond Burger, which means that corporations will see that this is something that's not going away. It's not a flash in the pan, no pun intended. And it's something that consumers really want. So they will invest in this space and start completely remaking their supply chain to make it orders of magnitude better for the planet. Equally, governments, I think we're getting to the point now where we need to start voting for candidates who are taking climate change seriously. The best time to have done this would have been 20 years ago, but now is the second best time to do it, right? So let's do that. We need to start engaging with our political representation, letting them know that they need to take this stuff seriously. As an example, we're talking about energy transitions, we're talking about electrification of the transportation grid. These are all things that are driven by governments, right? They have to be able to incentivize this change in big business. If all three pieces of this don't fit together, individual consumption, big business, and government, we won't make the change that we need to take. So I think, hashtag take action now is what just popped up on the screen there. I would say let's take action across all of these buckets.
Yeah, I think it's all three. It's big businesses, governments, and individuals can make a difference in their own ways. I think people are always afraid of change, and that's why they just don't want to do it. They don't want to change their way of living. But governments can enforce that, and then big businesses can shift their mindset to becoming more environmentally friendly. And individuals can do their part and maybe get an electric car, or just try and figure out, use public transportation and try not to, or carpool. And there are many ways to reduce our carbon footprint, and and I think, again, like what you said, Varun, about the vegetarian and the flexitarian, I managed to persuade my family. We're trying to go for more of a vegetarian diet now, because that is, again, a big impact on the climate emergency as well.
Satya, I'm glad you brought that up. So it's interesting. I think, Varun, I love you to kind of comment on this. But there's a new study from Nature Sustainability that says a plant-based diet can remove over a decade of CO2 emissions. Can you explain to us like how that would actually work? I mean, because that's something we can all do, right? I mean, what we put in our mouth is something very much under our control, right? And so if that study is correct, and maybe if you can break that down for the audience as to how that actually sort of translates into those mentioned reductions, that would be helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Lavi and everyone, we all know that forests as well as marine plants, they essentially pull carbon dioxide out of the air, right? They sequester carbon dioxide. A lot of the issue is that when we consume meat, as I mentioned at the beginning, we have to feed all those animals. And they're very, very resource intensive. They take a lot of water, a lot of grain, a lot of resources that we need, non-renewable energy, all of the things that we need to raise those animals. So a chicken takes in 9 calories of input in the form of wheat, corn, soy, etc., to give you 1 calorie of output in the form of meat. And chickens are the most efficient animal that we eat for meat. Cows are much, much worse than that. Pigs are slightly worse than chickens. So if you look at cows, right, I think we all know, well, there's been other stuff that's been going on this year, but I think we also know that the Amazon has been sporadically on fire for the last year or so, and even before that, right? A significant portion of the reason for that is we are clearing away, or people there are clearing away parts of the Amazon to grow more soy to feed to cows, or to have more pasture lands to graze cows. So all of that forest cover in one of the ecosystems that has been described as the lungs of the world is being cleared away. All of that forest cover is gone. So we no longer have the option of sequestering carbon dioxide in the same way from the atmosphere. All of these things in a chain are leading to all of our issues on the planet, right? So if we switched more and more to a plant-based diet, we would need to eat less cows, which means we would need less soy, much, much less soy, right? Instead of 34 calories going into a cow to give you 1 calorie, you just need 1 calorie of soy. That's 34 times less land, 34 times less water, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that's just the feed part, right? You need to feed the cows water and stuff also. But anyway, because you're incredibly efficient, you're able to recover all of that forest land, right? Create so much more opportunities to sequester carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. Similar story in the oceans, as I was saying earlier, which is how you get those numbers. That's how you get essentially an incredibly more sustainable planet. But I'll stress once again, if we're going to ask people to switch, we have to give them alternatives that taste the same or better and cost the same or less. And this is where I think, one essential component of the individual comes into play, which is that everyone who's here, everyone on this call can look into careers in this space or in others like the ones I'm describing, right? Material science or meat alternatives or energy transitions or electric cars. And by the way, those spaces don't only need scientists, they also need marketing experts, they need accountants, they need assistants, they need everyone. So choosing where you align your career can have a massive impact, right? If you're able to impact how thousands of people eat, it's going to have thousands more impact than your own consumption as well.
That's a really good point, Varun. I mean, because we have a lot of young people listening in today, I'm assuming that this career choices, right? I mean, yes, in one sense, it's an emergency and it's a terrible, stressful thing, but it also has opened up a whole lot of opportunities for young people who are thinking, okay, what do I become? Do I become a doctor, lawyer, engineer sort of thing, which is a South Asian thing of that's the only thing you can do in your world that's worth anything, to the whole gamut of stuff that you can do that's super exciting because you're solving incredibly complex problems that will have massive impact, right? So in itself, that could be a very sort of an interesting turn for all these young people who are listening who also care about the environment. So I'm glad you brought that point up. I think that's a very good one.
And there's never been a better time in history to do this, right?
Yes, I agree. Totally agree.
We know so much about these problems now. We know so much about scientific solutions to these problems, and new solutions are popping up all the time. Circular economies, bioplastics, edible packaging, right? Like there's so much super cool stuff that's coming up right now, and that's being pioneered by people like the ones who are on this call, which is great.
Absolutely. And I think, the solutions, I don't know whether anybody on this conversation saw Kiss the Ground with Woody Harrelson. I mean, they again, just by, improving the soils, it can also trap carbon dioxide and reduce and actually sort of re-green the planet in a very efficient manner. They have some great graphics on that Netflix documentary that shows how that's done. So I think the solutions are really at hand. It doesn't require sort of us really stretching ourselves to come up with a new discovery, like trying to go to Mars or something like that. We already have the solutions, it seems, Varun, and the Earth Guardians already here. It's a matter of actually making those things happen. Am I oversimplifying the problem when I say that, or is it a matter of will more than actually trying to discover something?
Yeah, I think it's a matter of determination, and a matter of again, will. And like you said, we have the solutions. We just need to carry them out and do them as soon as possible. I think we need as many people on board with this, and that's why we're trying to raise as much awareness as possible.
Karthika, any more
Yeah.
questions?
I have a few. I just want to say, I mean, as proud as I am of you guys for taking this up and doing this, it also breaks my heart in a sense, because this isn't something you should be burdened with. It's something that we should have fixed, and we failed, and we're sorry about that. And so the question I want to ask you is, how does it feel to grow up in the shadow of this climate emergency, where the next generation, or maybe the generation after that, if we're lucky, would not even maybe see an elephant alive, that all of this beauty around us may probably be gone? Like, how does it feel to live in that shadow?
Well, it kind of sucks. I mean, it's like, I mean, at the moment, at least us, we have somewhat clean air at the moment, but think about the next generation. It's just going to be so much worse, and then generation after that, and it keeps going. So yes.
Jumana? Sorry.
Yeah, it's just it's really sad. I mean, because we want the best for our children too. So even if it's not, we feel it's our responsibility now to fix this so they can have clean air.
And it's also quite a debate whether we should have children, because that could again impact the environment, and don't know if this world is good enough if we have children.
We don't even know if the world has the capacity to take more children. How are we supposed to
and take in more and increase the population? Can we afford to?
Wow.
Because we have to make those decisions, so that it sucks.
Yeah. And it is quite a big responsibility on saving the planet, as children especially. But we are trying our best, and it is going to work. We will do it eventually.
I think that's kind of the whole point. There needs to be a massive change. Otherwise, it's just going to keep getting worse and worse.
Yeah.
And the point where it's no longer reversible is going to come out.
Very soon, yeah.
Sorry, guys, I'm tearing up here because a bunch because 13-year-olds should not be worrying about whether they should or should not be having children.
What can parents and adults do to help you to fight climate change? I mean, what do you think we should all do? How more supportive can we be, and what would you expect us to do?
Wait, can I that one?
Yeah, go on.
I very much think every adult will vote for in terms of government for a person who is going to try and make climate change, because we can't vote. That's your responsibility. It's one thing that we're not allowed to do for some reason. I mean, if that's the one thing that we can't do for you, you have to do it yourself.
Yeah.
Point well taken. Yeah. Spot on. So if you're 18 and older, you are suggesting that which is the normal voting age for most countries, that you exercise that vote on behalf of people who cannot, right? That's one point you're saying. What else can we do?
I think it's there's a lot of support, like if there's someone whose parent isn't super keen on them like joining a movement like Earth Guardians, they should actually let them join a movement like Earth Guardians or any environmental movement, because it's for their future. So I think that's one thing, and the parents can talk to as many people as they can because they have a wide outreach with people in businesses and stuff like that to try and spread awareness and get stuff changed that we cannot do. Yeah.
Anyone else?
Any last comments or anybody else?
This is just absolutely remarkable, and it is heartbreaking. I just want to underline that I think Aisha's point was excellent. I think oftentimes people will vote what they believe is their self-interest, localized self-interest, something that's bothering me in my immediate vicinity. But in the climate emergency, success anywhere is everybody's success, and we need to make sure that people understand this point, right? It's the same thing as a pig farmer feeding their pigs antibiotics because they think it's going to keep their pigs well, and it's going to fatten them up. But then you get antibiotic resistance and everyone suffers, right? This is the small decisions everywhere that lead to crises everywhere. And so this is the kind of mindset that we need to take, that we are, and I'm 30, obviously I can vote. I'm not a parent yet, but I hope to be. We need to be able to steward the planet for the next generation and the generation after that. And the trajectory we're on right now is not going to let us do that. So it's extremely heartening to see everyone here talking about these things, but we have a lot of work still to do. And I'm just glad that a lot of this work is in the hands of people that care, that are on this call right now, incredibly capable people that care.
Thank you.
Well said.
Yeah,
Well said.
I think our ancestors, they preserved this earth, they tried to preserve this earth, and they gave it to us. And now we're the young custodians of it. I mean, we need to preserve it for the next hundreds, thousands of years. It's our duty to do that.
Yeah.
And so, Jumana, what do you think that adults like us can do more to help you do that? What do you think, if there was one thing to pick, what would that be?
I think, to me, it's just support. I just think the adults and parents can just support us and guide us.
Yeah, support us and join the fight in their own ways.
Yeah.
They can, I don't know, through like social media presences, if they also spread awareness, and then like if someone else believes, they can spread it, and it can keep going on until like maybe like the whole population wants to do something.
Yeah.
And we could possibly like reverse this whole problem.
Yeah, I mean the solution does exist. That's true. Yeah.
So sorry, I have a follow-up question.
Yeah.
Speaking of support and what adults can do, obviously Greta is a very good example of a young activist who's trying to do something, but there are world leaders who are adults who are not supporting her.
Yeah.
How does that make you feel? And can you identify with the rage that she feels sometimes in terms of the burden that the generation has to bear?
It's angering. Nope, that's not a word. It's enraging sometimes.
It's very frustrating.
The fact that governments and big businesses are just not willing to change them, shift their mind to becoming more environmentally friendly. And I think it is for success. I think it's for profit, that they don't want to, because they're very successful now, that they think if they shift, they'll go down, the profit will go down. And I think that is quite upsetting, the fact that it's only for the money, which is, yeah.
And Varun, you're seeing, I mean, we are seeing on the alternative protein side that sort of fear of companies thinking that if I change, I'll go under is not really validated, right? Because there's a lot of money and a lot of opportunity in the alternative protein space, so much so that some of the largest sort of companies that are not in that Tyson's Foods or Unilever or Nestle, all of them are sort of quickly shifting focus from sort of animal agriculture, animal products to plant-based and others, right?
Yeah, I mean, Lavi, I would argue that companies like Kodak should have been a little more afraid of dying without innovating, right? Like,
Right.
I mean, if Kodak had been alive to the possibility of doing digital cameras, they would probably still be around today in a much greater way than they are now. If Blockbuster, we all watch Netflix. If Blockbuster had been alive to come on, like, are we seriously saying that standing still is the best way to exist 10, 20, 30 years from now? I think all corporations know this, which is why 9 out of the top 10 US meat producers have invested in plant-based meats or started their own line of plant-based meats, right? Why Unilever last week came out with a statement that they want to increase revenue from plant-based lines to $1 billion very soon, right? And Nestle, 40% of their revenue this year during a pandemic was plant-based foods, right? And they actually, sorry, excuse me, that's a mistake. Their revenue from plant-based foods increased 40%. Yeah, but their other categories declined by a few percent, right? So I think people are seeing the writing on the wall. What everyone here is saying is very true in terms of world leaders thinking that they need to stay within what's already existed for decades, thinking that they need to protect their vote banks, etc. But those vote banks are going to be the most disadvantaged from climate change. Lavi, you spoke about Kiss the Ground. Can we really watch a documentary like that and how soil health, which is affected by climate change and all of these crises, we can't think that doesn't affect farmers, right? And so for governments in places like India to say, look, we have 50% of our population is farmers and we need to care about farmer income. We can't think about climate change. That's too advanced a problem. Well, who do you think climate change is going to impact? It's going to impact farmers, right? This is the critical decade. And I think everyone here, no matter how young you are, your educational choices are being made right now, right? So whether you decide to study economics, material science, accounting, whatever, you have the opportunity to apply your talents to these problems, to go and transform these governments from the inside out, transform these corporations from the inside out. And we see it's already happening. There are young people at Niti Aayog, which is the government's policy think tank in India. If you go to their offices, they have the sustainable development goals printed out and stuck on walls there, on every single cubicle as well. So people do care about these things. It's just that this is the critical decade and we have to do a lot more in this direction.
So in other words, Varun, the young children on this planet, on this panel, they have even more responsibility because this is the decade to make it happen, and they have this that particular inflection point for them where it is sort of their in their hands to make this change happen, and so it is this generation then that's got to make it happen, right?
Yeah, and look, it is a tremendous responsibility, and like I said right at the beginning, you didn't choose this, you inherited it.
Right.
But in general, I think the thing that keeps me sane is thinking about all of this as an opportunity, right? Because we have the opportunity now to live our values in ways that previous generations did not. I can make my living and work in a space that I deeply care about, and even so many of my peers don't have that privilege, right? And I would encourage them to leave their stupid job and come work in this fun space that's going to save the planet, right? Like I think overall, we would love for more and more people to get involved, and this decade and this generation has the opportunity to do that. You can marry your head and your heart, your values and your bank account, right? You can do a lot for planet, profit, and personal goals in this generation, which is great.
Well said. So, Karthika, any more last closing comments?
Yeah, I have a couple actually. One is, if there was a heartfelt plea that you could make to the powers that be, who could be watching today or whenever they see this thing, whenever they stumble upon this episode, what would that be? Satya?
Take action now. Stop cutting our trees down and just do what you can to get rid of fossil fuels and reduce your plastic intake and meat consumption. Just do what you can as an individual that you think is going to help us live on for generations to come.
Anyone else? Akash, you've been quiet.
Nothing really to add.
Okay. So last comments from everybody on the panel, all the guests. Go ahead, Aisha.
Aisha, go ahead.
I wanted to add something I wanted to talk today because I did a bit of research on it, and I think like a really like sort of pressing concerning matter is overpopulation, because like a lot of like all like deforestation, all of that traced back, and so I
Yeah, and
think it's really important. I did some research, and obviously you can't just people to stop having kids, and you can't tell people to like just let their friends and family die. So like a lot of like the solution to that is education, good healthcare, like and reproductive healthcare. Like people have seen that like places that prioritize these, like the sort of birth rates have dropped like really low, and like so even like just educating like especially women, like just about those sort of issues, it can really help. And like and I really think we should be trying to encourage like stuff like adoption, that like a lot of people are like, you know, they view it sort of negatively, like it seems like a lot, which it is, it probably will be like a lot to take on, but sort of being the positive of that, and like, you know, showing that you can like have a family that's not your flesh and blood, like that'd be really helpful.
Wow.
Wow.
Anyone else?
For me, it's like Satya said, like take action today, because like tomorrow doesn't really come. Because if you delay, like you will just keep delaying. You might as well just do something now itself and like help out now.
Jumana?
Jumana, are you there?
I think her connection.
Yeah, sorry, it
No, that's all right.
disconnected for a minute.
Any final thoughts? Jumana?
I just think that we can fix this if we all work together, and yeah, if we have the support we need, we can do it.
Varun?
Yeah, I mean, come over to the green and blue side. We obviously have all the cool kids. We have all the cool, we have all the cool tech. We have all the cool kids, and the time is now. This is the critical decade to dedicate our lives to this cause, and I think the opportunity is huge.
Well, I'm super impressed by the maturity, the depth of knowledge, the intellect, the passion, and the commitment of all of the panelists today, especially the younger adults here on the call. And I must say that while it's daunting, the climate crisis, and I think I echo Varun's feelings a bit here. It couldn't be in better hands to solve. And if this is a microcosm of the kind of talent and the thinking of this younger generation, then I think there is even more reason to be hopeful. That would be my sort of final comment on this. Kartika, you?
Yeah, I mean, for me, like I said, I'm super proud and impressed with these guys and the kids. And obviously, like Varun was saying, obviously the cool people hang out on the green and blue side. So I think we just need more people to join this.
Agreed. So thank you very much, everybody, for taking time.
Sorry, Lavi, I think Aisha wanted to say something.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Aisha. Aisha, are you there? Oh, Shiba. Okay. So thank you very much, everybody, for taking time off your Saturday morning to be with us.
Having us.
Oh,
there's just one more thing,
like
Lavi. Sorry, there's just one more thing. Satya, was there a petition you wanted people to sign?
Yeah, it's the petition about the Circular 05/2001. Yeah,
Okay.
link.
And we'll drop all those links as a part of the recording as well.
Yes.
And I do encourage everybody to sort of help kids like the Earth Guardians achieve their goals. And if you want to adopt a more flexitarian or meat-free diet, in January, Pandemic Punditry will be promoting veganery. and we'll have a whole slew of, and we're going to focus very much on South Asia and the Southeast Asia region with recipes and resources and people sort of helping you cook, and restaurants and celebrities to adopt veganery in January. So there's a big push where Karthik and I are planning this right now. So if any one of you want to join us in that endeavor, strongly encourage you to do that. We'll feature all of the stories from 31 days of going plant-based in the month of January. So that's an upcoming thing. So if you want to throw in your support in that endeavor, you're more than welcome to join us. So just as a sort of a closing here, please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more interesting content like this. And please don't forget to click on the set reminder button for future conversations like this riveting conversation we had this morning. So thank you very much, everybody, for joining us on Pandemic Punditry. Have a great rest of the weekend. And we are very awed by everything that you do. So best of luck in doing what you do. Thanks again, Varun, for really holding everything together from a perspective of data and facts and figures and your unique point of view as well.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you
for having
us, guys. Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Well done, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.